So Spider-Man Far From Home is finally out. It's the first Marvel movie we have since Avengers Endgame, which is the biggest movie yet. Well, the Endgame was the biggest movie yet, not this one. It's the 23rd movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's crazy. And coming out of this movie, I've been watching these movies on opening night since the Avengers back in 2012, and this is the first time I've come out of a movie not knowing what is next for Marvel. Every time we've come out of a Marvel movie since the universe has begun, we've known what movie's coming next. We've known what is coming next. This is the first time that we know nothing about what's coming next. Well, we know what movies are coming, kind of. We know, like, Black Widow, Eternals, all that. But we don't know which one is next. It's probably Black Widow, but we don't know for sure. We just have release dates with unknown Marvel movies. But I'm not here to talk about the future of the MCU or the future of Marvel. I'm here to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. And what was this movie like? Well, first off, this movie was an absolute blast. It's over the last few years, it's kind of become apparent that Marvel Studios, they can't make bad movies. Even their worst movies, like Thor: The Dark World and Iron Man 2 and whatnot, they're not bad movies. They were just underwhelming. But even over the last years, since Age of Ultron, there's been no, well, not even Age of Ultron, since Thor: The Dark World, there's been no bad movies or movies that are underwhelming. Even Captain Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Doctor Strange, which a lot of people have opinions on, they're all still stylistically beautiful. They're not bland and forgettable movies. And Far From Home is another test that the Marvel just don't seem to know how to make bad movies anymore, and it's incredible. But the thing about Far From Home is that it's not just a movie where you can go, wow, that's not even a bad movie. This was an amazing movie. And I've got no idea how how Marvel can constantly hit it out of the park at this level. Like, I expected to kind of like this movie. This movie was a lot like Homecoming for me. For some reason, the marketing for Homecoming and the marketing for this didn't get me hyped for the movie at all. I wasn't too excited about it, and I wasn't too excited for Homecoming. But with Homecoming, I came out of it going, that was amazing. Well, my opinion on Homecoming has fallen down over the years, but the fact remains that coming out of Homecoming, I was on a huge Spider-Man high. It was the same with this. I wasn't that hyped for going in because the marketing, in my opinion, has been terrible. But I came out of this movie not being able to wait for what comes next for Spider-Man in the MCU and for Phase 4 of Marvel. This movie just blew through all of my expectations. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was a huge part of that. Mysterio is one of my favourite Spider-Man characters of all time, and I'm going to be honest, I think that... Alright, I guess this is kind of a spoiler because I'm not going to keep complete spoiler free, but there's a spoiler here regarding Mysterio. If you're into comics, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't really know comics, or if you don't really know the character, then you probably might get spoiled by this, so maybe turn it off. But Mysterio, in my opinion, is the most comic-accurate comic book movie villain we've had yet. He was unbelievable, and I think he's my favourite MCU villain of all time. I think he was better than Thanos. I think he was just phenomenal, and I really hope he comes back at some point down the line, a future MCU film, because he was just unbelievable. He made this movie for me. Like, Tom Holland's Spider-Man was great. It was great seeing Nick Fury and Maria Hill back and all that stuff, but Mysterio, man, he was just fucking awesome. The rest of the movie also worked very well, but there's a common complaint going around that the first half of the movie, like the first hour and a half-ish, is good, but it's very different from the second half of the movie, and I agree with that. The first half of the movie is very lighthearted, it's very fun, there's not much seriousness in it. The second half of the movie is very serious. It doesn't get dark necessarily, it's just serious tone, and in my opinion, it doesn't work very well. I don't think they handle the changing from the lighthearted fun to the seriousness very well. I also will say that the first half of the movie, while it's still enjoyable, it is quite boring. It doesn't feel like a Spider-Man movie for the first half of the movie. It's just jokes after jokes after jokes, and some of them don't really land. Like, honestly, I think the first half of the movie feels kind of a lot like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 did, where the first half of the movie can't take itself seriously. And the second half of the movie was like, I don't know what to compare it to, but it was more in tone with, say, something like Winter Soldier than the other half of the movie, and I think they could have handled that better. I just think this movie could have been less lighthearted than it was for the first half, especially coming straight off Endgame. There were rumors going around ages ago that this movie started like 5 minutes after the end of Endgame. That's a lie. The movie is after Endgame, but after definitely some time has passed. That's another thing. They did not handle the aftermath of Endgame well. The snap, which we thought was called the decimation, I believe it was said to be called. It's actually called the blip now, and it's just played as a joke, which was really disappointing. Like, they don't make any of it serious. Even the deaths of Avengers and whatnot, and the deaths of Iron Man like that, they're all very much played off as jokes, and that is very disappointing to me. I was really hoping that they would deal with that well. And I know it's Spider-Man, you shouldn't really expect seriousness like that from Spider-Man, but I was just hoping they'd do that a little better than they did. And the soundtrack was phenomenal. I actually thought Homecoming soundtrack was a little bit forgettable. I thought Far From Home soundtrack was brilliant. Michael Giacchino outdid himself with this, and the Mysterio theme, which was like a synth theme, was amazing. This movie also had surprising amount of like deep lore cuts to other Marvel movies, MCU movies. Like there were some connections to older MCU movies that I was very surprised they did. Like some parts of this movie made me go, wow, they're tying into that. And if you're gonna be surprised, if you haven't seen the movie, you're gonna be surprised by some of these deep cuts. I know I certainly was. It's great seeing Nick Fury and Murray Hill again. It was the supporting cast is always like Ned and MJ and stuff. They were great. Again, they were all kind of here for jokes at the time. MJ had somewhat of a story on her own, but Ned and Betty and all that, they all were just kind of there for jokes. There was a mini story between Ned and Betty, but it was again mostly for joke scenes. So I guess my only serious problem with this movie is that I feel like they should have hammered down on the seriousness when it needed to do, and the tone shift could have been done better. Besides that, though, I think this was a blast of a movie. I'm very happy with how it played out, and I would give this an 8.8 out of 10. So have you seen Spider-Man Far From Home? If you did, what did you think about it? I hope you liked this video. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you have an awesome day.